Welcome back. Let me first remind you of the schedule, because on this paper that you got, the breaks are not included, but of course we have breaks. So the schedule is, we start at 8:15, have a 50 minutes break at 9 o'clock. We go on at 9:15, have again a 15 minutes break at 10 o'clock, go on until 11 o'clock, and I must say I hope that I got it right. At 11 o'clock we have a long break of 1 hour and 15 minutes, and then at 12:15 we continue until 1 o'clock, have 15 minutes break, and go on until 2 o'clock, or 14 hours. Is this correct?
Yes.
Okay. So lunch break in some way at 11 o'clock. Let me remind you that I want to encourage you to ask questions. I can propose also that if you like, you can write down your questions and give me the paper with the written questions, and we can discuss it later, if you like. But you might, yeah, please.
I have one question for you.
Yeah.
What is the main criteria to become a candidate for European Union?
We will speak about this later. This means I have to tell something about this, and I could ask you to be patient. Yeah. I could explain it to you, but we will come to this.
Okay.
And it's a political process, very difficult. There are 35 chapters, but I will explain it to you a little later.
Okay, no problem.
So I was saying, if you like, you can write down your question, but it should be in English. I would have difficulties to understand your language, unfortunately. So, and when you give me the paper, I will come back to the question and we can discuss it. Okay? Any other question at the moment? So let's go on. What I want now to speak about in a little bit more detail is the European Commission. So remember, you remember we have three major institutions or bodies of the European Union, which are the European Council, the European Parliament, and the European Commission. Now, why do I speak in more detail about the European Commission? Practically, well, the answer is quite easy. When you deal normally with the European Commission, I mean not with the European Union, not as a politician, but as a normal person, for example, when you participate in projects, you deal with the European Commission. You normally would not deal with the European Parliament or with the European Council. So when you are interested to get funds from the European Union, it is from the European Commission, and therefore we need to know more about the European Commission. So what I want to explain, what is the European Commission, how it works, what is the structure of the European Commission, and give you some examples. We will speak about departments of the European Commission, which are called Directorate Generals. So this means basically I will speak about the European Commission itself and then about the departments. Now, what is the European Commission? I had it already on a slide before. The European Commission, and this is the basic definition, is the executive body or executive arm of the European Union. So they are doing what the European Council and the European Parliament discuss and decide. So they propose laws, they propose policies, they propose agreements, they negotiate, they promote the European Union. By the way, one remark here at this stage. I think have you seen already these slides?
get your presentation?
Yes, yes, I think it's prepared. I think it's already prepared.
Studente, fitta je već postavljeno da mogu skinuti, a nisam dogovorila s vašima kako ćemo vama to proslijediti, ali odgovorit ćemo. Možda putem maila neko počne da, pošto ima puno 37 megabajta, mislim da nećemo moći mailom. Ali ako mi dalje poslije,
So this is, by the way, what you will get is a PDF. The reason simply is I'm not working with Microsoft Office, I'm working with OpenOffice, and the format of those files is different from Microsoft format, but normally everybody uses Microsoft, so I convert this into PDF, which is a format that everybody can read. Technically speaking, it's a bit more difficult to convert from OpenOffice format into Microsoft format. Now, coming back, so we have the executive arm of the European Union, and they do everything. What is not on the slide, for example, you know that you can lobby at some institution, at government institution. You can lobby at the European Union. When you do the lobbying, normally, not always, but normally, this would be done at the European Commission. So you go to somebody of the European Commission and explain this person what is your interest. In this respect, lobbying actually is nothing bad. There can be negative forms of lobbying, but in general, many people do this kind of lobbying, and lobbying in the sense, I mean, is simply to go to some representative of the European Commission, in this case, and explain them your interest. Of course, I must confess, when I call them up and say, I'm the director of a small consulting company in Bulgaria, can you receive me? They would hesitate to take their time for me, but if I were the director of Daimler-Benz, Mercedes, I would have such a person to speak to everybody in the European Commission. So this is important executive arm, and what it means on one side, and this is here, on one side, everybody working in the European Commission. This means the whole staff, all the administrators and bureaucrats in the European Commission. But it has also a different meaning. The European Commission corresponds, firstly and more formally speaking, to something that is called a college of commissioners. So each member state, and we have seen we have 27 member states, they send one commissioner, one representative of the state to the European Union, to the European Commission, and they are actually the heads of the European Commission. So we have 27 commissioners, and we have one president of the European Commission, or to this college, which you see here. Who knows the name? Barroso, yes, exactly. So, formally speaking, the European Commission means a college of 27 commissioners. More informally, as I said, it's everybody, or all the people working in the institution. This is the main building of the European Commission, called the Parliament, which actually is in Brussels at Place Schuman, named after what you have heard, the main founder of the European Union, Robert Schuman. And the European Commission has four main roles. Firstly, and we have heard this already, to propose legislation, to prepare and propose legislation. So they work to prepare these regulations, the directives, the recommendations, and so on, and prepare this to the Parliament and the Council. Secondly, they have to manage the European Union policies and implement the European policies. So if you are not a politician, then you would rather deal with this role, implement EU policies, which means giving funds for the implementation when you participate in the European Union project. You are concerned with this second And then fourth, they are representing the European Union around the world. So this means practically that the European Commission, they have so-called delegation offices in all countries of the world. There is a European Commission delegation in Sarajevo, because your country is not member of the European Union. So these are four main roles: propose, prepare legislation, to implement policies and budget, to enforce European law, that means to control that everything goes correctly. To enforce European law, this means also when a member state doesn't implement a directive, then the European Commission comes to them, to these member states, and says you have to pay a penalty. And finally, the representation around the world. So these are the four main roles. And what is it? I'm coming now to the structure of the European Commission. I said already we have 27 commissioners, one from each EU country. So this is more or less the political level of the European Commission that gives the directives or the strategic directions of the European Commission. And what is important, the European Commission actually cannot do what they want. They have to answer to the European Parliament. So the European Commission in this respect is below the European Parliament, and you sometimes sense this or feel this when you deal with European Commission people, that they are afraid of the reaction of the European Parliament. And the European Parliament, as I put here, has actually the power to dismiss this college of commissioners. Has this happened already? Do you know? Yes or no? Yes, it has happened in the past. There was one case, and I confess I don't remember the date, but it was still in the 1990s, where some cases of bribery were detected by some commissioners, and after this the whole college of commissioners had to resign. So this has happened. Now the European Commission is structured into departments which are called Directorate Generals, and there are in total 33 Directorate Generals. You could ask the question, why are there just 33 and not 27? This is a good question, but I cannot answer it. The reason is a bit the history of the European Union. This means, well, the European Commission. The European Commission was established in 1951, so in this, during all these years it has grown, departments were created, so this is a kind of history that we have 33 Directorate Generals. As a consequence, when you compare this to the commissioners, as a consequence this means that there are some commissioners who are in charge of several, or of two exactly, departments. Then we have services in the European Commission, like the European Anti-Fraud Office, OLAF, which is very important. And when you live in a country like Bulgaria, you hear speaking a lot about OLAF. We have a data protection officer, we have legal service, and so on. I don't want to go into detail here. Normally, people don't have to deal with these kinds of services, except when they commit some fraud. The important is the 33 Directorate Generals. And you see this, by the way, all on the internet. I didn't put all 33 on the slides. I mentioned only a few of them, which could be important. So when you look at this, these are some of them, and this is alphabetically, I believe. So we start with the Agriculture and Rural Development Directorate General. So everything which concerns agriculture, policy, funding is done here. So when you are working in the agriculture and you get money from the European Union, this goes via this Directorate General. Then we have the Budget Department, or Directorate General Budget, which of course is also important, because it's a kind of let's say, finance ministry that decides on the budget for all Directorate General. By the way, I called these Directorate General departments the European Commission. You could also think they are kind of ministries of the European Union. So then we have something that is called communications networks, content and technology, abbreviated to connect or connect. And here I can say that these departments very frequently also change names. There are a lot of reorganizations in the European Commission. This was called before Information Society and Media, and they thought at some stage, it was actually last year only, that they should better be called Communications Network, Content and Technology. Then we have education and culture, dealing with everything concerning education, funding to universities, for example. We have enlargement. This is the Directorate General that deals with the candidate countries. We have enterprise and industry. We have environment. I think the names explain by themselves what they mean. We have Europe Aid Development and Cooperation, abbreviated to DEFCO, that deals with aid or funding to the world, particular. We have regional policy, research and innovation, and then we have something that is called Eurostat, the Statistical Office of the European Union, that prepares statistics of the whole of the European Union, and finally the Joint Research Center, which is not a Directorate General, but it's a department of the European Commission. The Joint Research Center is a kind of particular organization because they carry out research for European policies on behalf of the European Union. They get money from the European Union. They can participate in European Union projects, but essentially it's a research organization which includes research on information technology. There is a large part of this Joint Research Center that deals with nuclear energy, and actually in the 50s it was created to do research on nuclear energy, and this still exists. They are situated, many of them are situated in very nice parts of Europe. The largest one is in Italy at the Lago Maggiore in the north of Italy, very nice place. There is another part in Sevilla in Spain, also very nice place. But there are others also in northern Europe. So important, as I said, these are some special departments. Then these are some Directorate Generals, and you see from the names what they do. Now we don't have the time to look at all these Directorate Generals. At the moment, I have just prepared some slides on some of them that are important for our course tomorrow and on Wednesday. So important for you, DG Enlargement, or is it DG Communications? This is the Directorate General that deals with information technology, and important is regional policy that deals with structural funds. We'll speak about this more in detail tomorrow. So let me remind you that I said before that the European Commission has 4 main roles, and all these departments or ministries or Directorate Generals, they do this in their specific area. So DG Enlargement, for example, develops a policy for the enlargement of the European Union to the candidate countries and gives money to the candidate countries via this so-called instrument for pre-accession. And then they monitor what is happening in the candidate countries. They produce regular reports on the status of the accession and similar things for the others. As I said, remember there are 33 departments. If you want to know all of them, you can look at the website of the European Union. I will show this website at the end of today. But nobody, I believe, people would be able to remember all 33. So what I want to do is to give you some examples. Let me start with DG communication networks, content on technology. You find all information here. As I said, they are dealing with information technology and in applications of information technologies. Although it is not evident from their name, so communication networks means, practically speaking, the Internet. The Internet plays a very important role in European Union policy now. Then they deal with content, mostly multimedia content. Before, as I said, they were called multimedia, so now it's called only content, access to content, rights to content, privacy issues and so on, and technology, which means mostly IT, information technology. So what do they want to do? They want, let me say it in one word, they want to put information technology in practice in the European Union in order that this can be used as a basis for economic growth. It's written here in a different way. I have copied this from the European Commission website, or from the DG Connect website, which is a bit more difficult to understand. To harness information and communication technologies in order to create innovation and generate economic growth and jobs. But this is more or less what I've said already. Here, ICT, information communication technologies, is the important issue. And what they want to do is not only to use what is available, but to create innovation and with this to create economic growth and jobs. So this is kind of process that is behind these words. We have ICT. With ICT we create innovation, and with new tools, new applications that are innovative, we can create new jobs and economic growth. This is the basic idea behind it. And then it is said to build on the great empowerment which digital technologies can bring in order to create a better world now and for future generations. So this is, they have called it mission, could also call it a vision, what they want to do. So here what you see behind this is a word that is very often used by the European Union, which is called sustainability. So not only do something for the current market, but something that can be used for future generations, which is what I call sustainability. Now, how does it look like? This is the so-called organigram of DG Connect. Now, I'm aware you cannot read this, but it is not necessary that you can read what is there. What we have on top something, and I show this to you because this is the same basically for all Directorate Generals. They're structured in a very similar way. We have on top here a box. This is the Director General. The Commissioner is not shown because the Commissioner is on the political level above still. So here we have a Director General, and I confess even I cannot read this on this slide. Then we have here left and right some advisors. So they don't work alone, they work in a team which are called advisors. And then we have here on this level something that is called directorates. So here this box on this level represents always a director, including this one. Maybe I should have made a paper copy, because as I said, I also cannot read it. So they have, in all Directorate Generals, they have directorates or special departments for human resources, of course, then for finances, for budget, for policies, and in this special case, DG Connect, they finance a lot of projects. Now they have, and I say this from memory, they have here directorates for special financing issues. This means there is one on, let me say, on health, ICT, applications for health. Then there is something for e-government, something like this. They then they have some basic technology for internet technology, such kind of departments. I have it on the computer. Maybe we could print it during these days that you can really read it. It's also available on the internet. Then here we have something that is called units. So this European Commission terminology. We have here for one directorate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units. So here we have a director on this level. Here this is called head of unit, and then there are a lot of people working in this unit. You don't need to remember this, and there will be no examination question on this, but I thought it would be quite interesting to show you such an organigram. And as I said, all organigrams of the Directorate Generals look in the same way. So we have again Director General who works with advisors. Then we have directorates with directors and individual units. So this was DG Connect. The next one of importance, particularly for research projects or research financing, is abbreviated DG RTD, or the DG Research and Innovation. RTD should stand for Research and Technology Development, which I didn't put on the slide. The Research and Technology Development. Normally people speak about R&D, research and development, but the European Commission prefers to use this word, research and technology development. And the long name is here, research and innovation. So they are dealing with research in general, research in all kinds of areas. And the difference to what we have heard before, the difference to DG Connect, is DG Connect deals with information technology. Everything related to information technology. Here what they want to do, develop and implement European research and innovation policy. So again, we have a policy component, they're developing policy, but they also implement via research projects where people can participate. It's something we will speak about on Wednesday. So the tasks, they support research and innovations through European framework programs. Framework program means very big research programs. They coordinate and support national and regional research and innovation programs and contribute to the creation of the European research area. So there are important words. First, the European Framework Program. I will explain this to you in more detail on Wednesday. As I said, very big research programs that finance individual projects for everybody in Europe who does research. Universities, companies, even government organizations, maybe even individuals. Then they work together with national governments for the coordination of national research programs. And what they want to do, and this is a kind of vision, is to create the European research area. And this is abbreviated to ERA, European Research Area. Also very important term in Europe, and the European Research Area basically means that all researchers all over Europe should be able to work together and should be in contact. I will come back to this. Now, the research areas, I will not read this in detail. It's only to give you a short impression. As I said, they are dealing with all kinds of research. Whereas DG Connect, and I repeat here information and communication technology, so there is a kind of overlap. All is important topic is rather innovation in all areas. This means develop new concepts, new services that can be put to the market. And looking, for example, for here they have research on health. There is also a difference to DG Connect. Also DG Connect deals with health, but what they are doing or what they finance is projects that use information technology, new information technology for health. Whereas here they finance all kinds of things in the area of health, for example, diseases, new research on diseases, research on cells in human brain, whatever. Now, lastly, our next is DG Regional Policy, the Directorate General for Regional and Urban Policy. And now here I confess, I know this more for the regional policy. I don't know been confronted with anything with respect to urban policy, what they are doing. So what they want to do is to support the development of the regions in Europe. So here, in this important issue, we are not dealing with research, we are not dealing with a specific technology, but we are dealing with regions. So this is a geographic concept, and this is the difference. So what they want to do, they want to strengthen, or no, I should say what they do, not what they want to do. They strengthen economic, social and territorial cohesion by reducing disparities between the levels of development of regions and countries of the European Union. Do you understand this? Yes? Okay, I confess when I read this the first time I didn't understand it. I find this a very difficult sentence. But nevertheless important, here is the word cohesion. And you hear this word very often in this context. Cohesion, what does cohesion mean? Can you say this? What does the word mean? Yes, exactly. So cohesion means that something fits better together, cohesive, that it goes together. So this important word, they deal with cohesion and this means reducing disparity or increase the cohesion. And with this, they contribute to the overall economic performance of the EU. Now it is written here, I copied all this from their websites, I must say. Development of regions and countries. Actually, for me, it is not so much the countries directly. They are, as I said, they are dealing with the regions of Europe. They help regions that are less prosperous or are suffering from structural problems to improve competitiveness and to achieve a faster rate of economic development in a sustainable way. So, regions that are less prosperous, and again, also important word, sustainability. This means that something that is done has an effect, let me say, also on the future, can remain stable in the future, maybe for future generations, for our children, the children that you will have. So this is, sustainability is again a word that you always find today in European Union policies. So the regions, and I have some more information on this. What do? They co-finance infrastructure projects. Infrastructure means, for example, building roads, as simple as this, or maybe also telecommunication infrastructure, but roads, bridges, financing comes from DG Radio. Information society is also here a very important word. They want to educate, transfer know-how, again on regional level. They want to invest in people and stimulate cross-border cooperation. We will speak in more detail about this. They have a lot of funds, which are basically on one side the structural funds, and on the other side the instrument for pre-accession assistance. Structural funds is European Regional Development Fund and Cohesion Fund. This is for the European Union, and this is for the candidate states. I will explain in more detail what it means. So they finance these projects, and this is what we understand, and this is what they are dealing with. So you see different colors on this slide. It should be, yes, it's on the top. What they deal with, or how they measure the economic performance of regions, is via the gross domestic product, GDP per head, and they measure the GDP of the whole of European Union, and then they say there is an average GDP in all countries in the European Union, and this is the kind of threshold. So GDP per head is a percentage of the community average, you read at the top. And now we have here the different colors. For example, what you see in particular here, this is darker, this is Eastern Europe. You know, of course, they have lower GDP. We have here lighter colors, here something like yellow, green, and you know that Germany, UK, of course, they have higher GDP. And now we see here, sorry that it's not so well visible, this dark red should be is less than 50% of the GDP of the average GDP. This is here Eastern Europe, and actually you find the same color also in UK. There is a little part in UK, which is a very poor region. So this is the poor regions with which DG Regio is dealing predominantly or mainly. Then we have the other regions until two regions that have more than 125% of the GDP. And these are the green regions, you see them on my screen, which are northern Italy, eastern Austria apparently, some parts of southern Germany, the Netherlands, north of Belgium, and so on. So this is very important. And what I didn't put is DG enlargement, but we'll come back to this, and I think at the moment it is enough. What, if we look at, I explained to you what is the European Commission, what are the main roles of the European Commission. I introduced the concept of the Directorate Generals and gave you 3 examples of Directorate Generals, which are DG Connect, DG Research, and DG Review. Important terms are, as said, the name Directorate General. You should understand what is a college of commissioners. How many commissioners do we have?
27.
No, 27. One for each member state. We have 27 member states at the moment. 33 was what? Departments of Directorate Generals. So I'm now 5 minutes early. What I propose is that I start already with the next part, and then we break, as it is written here, at 10 o'clock.
Can I ask something?
Yes, please, of course.
Can we use for Bosnia and Herzegovina every DG? Or only the 3 DGs for funds?
Yes, these are some 4 funds. I would say no. I will come back partly to this. So what you can, the major funds are coming from the EPA program, which is DG enlargement. Then Bosnia and Herzegovina participates in the research programs, which is DG research thinking about other departments, my information is, for example, looking at agriculture, that you don't get funds from DG Agriculture. So DG Agriculture, there is a big fund which is called CAP, which stands for Common Agricultural Policy, and within this policy they fund all kinds of activities in the agriculture. They support the farmers involved, let me say. My knowledge is that Bosnia-Herzegovina does not get funds from this CAP. So this is a part answer to your question.
Dus only enlargement
Yeah.
is important for us.
Yes. This is
Also European aid or something like that.
Europe, there is Europe 8.
Of European.
Europe 8 gives funds to other countries. So I don't remember actually whether I put it on the slide. Full screen. You see there, right on top, Europe 8 Development and Cooperation. This is money given to so-called third countries. This means countries which are not member states, which are not candidate states, which are not potential candidate states. So for you, is important this one, to my knowledge also this one, they get funds for education. There are some programs, DG Enlargement of course, and DG Research.
And can you use EU funds for startup companies?
Yes, also. Yeah. There are also banks. This is
Mostar also.
yeah, mostly European banks. They give funds, not as grants, but as more or less loans. As a startup company, I believe it would be difficult to get a grant from the European Union. This means a grant is the money that you don't have to pay back. Basically speaking, a loan you have to pay back, but when you start a company, you can get a loan from the European Union. But of course, you have to pay it back after some time. Other questions? Yes, we have time for questions. Yes, please, more questions? No. Well, looking at the watch, I propose to stop here. Doesn't make sense now for 2 minutes